to People Like Us, an exploration of how people like us live. Each week, the conversation explores culture, creativity, wellness, lifestyle, and the evolving meaning of luxury on the rock. That is Jamaica. In today's episode, we explore Jamaica as a luxury destination, shaped not only by beauty, but by music, culture, storytelling, and authentic experiences. As global travelers increasingly search for meaning, wellness, and connection, does Jamaica already have what it takes? Joining the conversation today is none other than Jon Baker, the man who they say is behind the renaissance of Port Antonio. True or false, Jon? First of all, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Novia. I have to process all that.
I know, right?
35 years now.
Incredible.
In Jamaica and Port Antonio. That started with just traveling around the island and then stumbling on Port Antonio and just making one of those wishes when you're young in your early 20s. Oh, I wish I could have a holiday home here.
Yeah.
I never realized that it would actually turn into what it's turned into. And yes, I guess that's been a brand or a name that's been in the back of my mind since I came here 35 years, because Port Antonio is going through a renaissance. I thought it was going to go through a renaissance probably the second year I was there, but
it probably did, actually. We didn't call it that then.
Yeah, but when you look at the history of Port Antonio, it's unique. It's unique to anywhere in the Caribbean or the world for that matter, and a lot of people don't know that. I mean, let's face it, turn of the century, it was the center of the Caribbean. It's when the banana boats came in, and Lorenzo Baker was, ironically, I say to people, is my great-grand-uncle.
Of course, claim him.
Well, he started the banana business, and it was through him that the ships came in with luxury cabins. So Port Antonio was one of the first luxury destinations. Yeah. And, you know, it became the United Fruit Company, the infamous, a few years later. He wasn't actually involved in then, but the Folly was Tiffany & Co. So it had the roots of luxury or explorers looking for this destination way over 100 years ago.
So, as a global traveler yourself, you were exposed to fashion at an early age. Your mom made Anne, the Princess Royal's wedding dress.
I have had the uncanny luck, good fortune of falling into different popular cultures during the journey of my life. It started out in punk, which was in 1977. I was at the Chelsea School of Art in Kings Road. And anyone that knows their pop culture, that's when it all exploded.
When it all exploded.
But there was also an interesting thing at that time that a lot of people don't talk about, which was it was when Jamaica was going through its troubles. So a lot of the Jamaican artists and creators were exiled. The great Bob Marley himself. So they were in Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill, and I'd come out of a sort of middle-class family. I was sort of being exposed at 16 years old in a foundation course to all these new cultures and, you know, kids my age that from, you know, Jamaica across the board that I'd never been really exposed to before. And that's when it really popped off. So needless to say, I didn't finish my degree. Before I knew it, I was hanging out in Vivienne Westwood's
with the lads
on Saturday afternoons, became great friends with Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, who influenced me a great deal. Started printing T-shirts and started a small boutique in Kensington Market. Right. And then punk was over after a year, and then the New Romantic Blitz kids came along. And so I was very involved in that movement, and that brought me to New York. But along this whole journey, especially from the punk, I was completely, because the punk gigs used to always have a reggae gig.
Always, so
you know, and the rock
you were exposed to reggae
so
from
I
then.
was exposed to so that was the first sort of thing that got me really interested. And so, of course, I was smoking weed, so I was listening to Legalize It, and I was getting all the 70s dub album and everything else. That was in my teens. And so
Well,
things evolved from
everybody at the
there.
concerts were,
Yeah, it was
smoking.
great.
It might not have been smoking, but they were inhaling.
But it was really the founding of why. So one thing led to another. Was in New York, did a big show there, fashion show when I was doing design, and I had a clothing collective called Axiom, and I kind of fell in love with New York, and I decided I was sort of trick of all trades but master of none, and I decided to focus just on music. So when I was about I think it was about 25, and already had my New York experience for a few years. I went to Jamaica and finally traveled around the island, and that's when I just started my indie label called G Street Records. And when I was in Portland, the people, the energy, the nature, I just knew I'd found my spot.
So coming from London, New York, so what was the draw? What was the fascination with Portland?
I just never been to a place so lush, and I'd never met a culture of people that was so just engaging and cool. I mean, I'd already experienced the Negril thing, the Montego, and it was just hustle, and you had to be sus to really figure out, who's hustling you and who's being your friend. But there was none of that in Portland.
And then, of course, the rain reminded you so much of London, right? So I get it.
It really did rain back then. It doesn't rain much now, that's for sure. I think St. Mary has more rain than Portland now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I keep telling Chris Blackwell that. And GoldenEye.
So you started, when we first met, you were managing Trident. You were putting Portland on the
that
map.
was kind of I bought a holiday home when I was a senior executive at Island Records in New York in the early 90s. And I was also had my own label. And so rather than go to the Hamptons and do all that whole craziness, I just said, I'm going to get a place in Jamaica. So that's when I bought a derelict villa, it was the villa that I bought then in 1991 that evolved to be what Geejam is now.
Ah, okay.
And so after I started sort of applying the same concept of running a record label to a small boutique hotel, I suddenly was in Vanity Fair. New York Times was writing about us.
Rolling Stone.
Yeah, and it all started to, so we believed that the tide rises for us, it rises for all. So Michael Lee Chin approached me in 2011. I'd actually moved back to New York still, and he said, look, I want you to take the Trident out of state of distressness. So I said, well, I've got this idea which is called the Port Antonio Renaissance.
Right.
And so no clue how to build a hotel, no clue how to build anything or do anything, but I think Chris Blackwell and Richard Berenson, to whom I both had ventures with over my career, said, if you're into it, say yes, work it out later. And that's what we did. And we opened it within a year. It was a huge success, #1 on TripAdvisor.
Yes.
That's where we met.
Yes.
And it rocked for 4 years. And then I left after 4 years, passed the reins over to the management we'd left there, and refocused on Geejam. Yeah.
And you really have, Geejam has become an enclave. The musicians jet in ostensibly to enjoy the vibe there at Geejam, the studio that's there. So the other components that you've introduced, the wellness factor, the emphasis on food, the visuals. I mean, it's such a beautiful property. Now, Jamaica as a luxury destination, what else do we need to do? Are we ready? Can we really say?
More than ready, to be honest. I think that people can, regardless of their budget, people can land at Manly or any of the hotels, and they can ad-lib it, and just going in and experiencing jerk, going and experiencing the noises at night, the crickets and everything else, you're already having that experiential experience. Yeah.
And that's
so,
the buzzword right now. I mean, people want the
exactly. And so
experience.
therefore, it's not just a matter of budget money. It's a matter of Jamaica is that experience.
Because Geejam is home to some of the wealthiest people in the world. I mean, even sometimes you have Mick Jagger kind of, chilling.
Well, from the music side,
Right.
because of our unique sort of thing was that we were a recording studio. So when I
Right.
when I had the holiday home or the villa, I put a studio on the property. Couldn't resist it, so we did it. And then that evolved into a residential studio. So we did the big No Doubt record. We did Indie Irie. This is all in the early 2000s, and it sort of evolved from there. Then I decided to sort of step out of the music industry in New York. There was a change with the internet and everything coming on, and I decided to come to Jamaica. I took on citizenship in the early 2000s, and actually got a base in Kingston, and that's when we started to get the ideas of turning into a boutique hotel, which was Chris Blackwell's idea. He just kind of pushed us into that, and Steve Beaver, who
Right,
came on
yes.
board as my partner, and we opened it, 7 rooms. That's all we had. The Bush Bar and the recording studio. And our first booking was a lockout for Sharon Stone's 50th.
Do you remember? I remember that.
50th
Yes.
birthday.
Yes, we carried that on page 2.
And it was incredible. I mean, we were solid booked the whole time, only 7 rooms. And then, of course, October 2008, we hadn't been open a year. The economic meltdown happened around the world. And that's when the Jolly Boys saved
That's
us.
when, because I wanted to get to that, in terms of, culture. I mean, it was incredible what you did with the Jolly Boys. I mean, mental music, John. You took the Jolly Boys, they were all over the
I
bloody
know,
place.
it was
So what was you're coming from reggae, ska.
Well, by
Punk.
then, by that moment in time, I was really immersed in getting Geejam going. And then when the economic meltdown happened, the phone started ringing. Steve and myself, we really didn't think we'd put everything into rebuilding the property. And it was only Steve and myself in terms of putting in our investment. And so,
There was no plan B, really.
Yeah, there was no plan B, exactly.
Right.
So I was with a dear friend of mine, music producer Mark Jones, who had a label, and I hadn't really taken much notice of Mento at that point. I'll be totally honest. What happened was I just used to see it come out, and there'd be a fruit punch, and they'd be playing Mento at airports, and I'd just say, no,
Whatever,
it's not cool. That's calypso. I'm not really into that.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm into sort of political reggae and all the stuff from this, and so. This guy called Albert Minot walked in with a
Albert.
Yeah, Albert walked in with his guitar, and then the Roomba guy came into the Bush Bar because a guest had asked them to come and play. They weren't residents there, and he played. And I looked at Mark, and he looked at me, and I said, "This guy's a star." We both did. So then we had an in-house producer called Del Virgo, who's a very talented engineer. And so we took Albert to the studio, and we got all the Mento instruments and some of the musicians, and we had this crazy idea to do a cover of Rehab by Amy Winehouse. You recorded at Geejam as well. So they did the cover, and then Rick Elgood came along, shot a video. We had Patrice Flynn in the video, all the characters from Port Antonio, and we did our own rendition, and it went viral. So I completely forgot about there was a recession on, and before I knew it, I was on a plane shopping a deal. We were recording an album of covers, rock covers, and the idea was, there was 2 ideas. One, and this kind of speaks a little bit to what Faye Ellington was talking about saying how, Mento is a cultural music and shouldn't have to be dealt with slack lyrics, whatever they want to call it in this day. But what I discovered through Mento was that it was the political music of its time.
It was, yes.
You had talked about corrupt politicians. There's one song called Night Food. Now, I don't get into what that's about, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist
to figure that out.
Exactly. So the subject matter, very controversial, very punk in a lot of ways. So I would pose that Mento is a beautiful and pure form of music, but it's also a political and it's a social statement. And it was of its time because there wasn't media like that in those days.
It was a call to action as well.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, I don't think people should get too upset. I think it's vital. I think Mento's got its place and is amazing. So cut a long story short, we did record deals in both territories, and they toured, mainly Europe.
But just to go back, because, we have the things here, we're looking at the things and we always look overseas. Mm-hmm. You've traveled and you looked at the Jolly Boys and you realized that it was here. They're here. And you took them, they went global. I mean, it was viral. They went viral.
The 2010 tour, they supported Sade in Europe.
Exactly.
And that came about because Sade used to be one of the college designers in my design collective. And we'd all helped Sade get her music career together.
We need to bring her back, John. But again, we're looking at the things, we have them here in Jamaica. So it's our luxury.
Correct.
We can certainly export to the world.
Which we've been doing.
Which we have been doing, mm-hmm. and brilliantly so. Some might argue not so much, mm-hmm. not so well. But I think we've done a great job at that. We've got Portland as a destination. We've got other destinations as well that we certainly can be proud of. But in terms of what else are we? Because the jury's still out as to whether or not we are ready. I feel that we're ready. We have lots to offer. But what else? What is lacking to take us across that bridge, as it were?
Port Antonius, it's been a connection to get there.
Yes,
and that's very key. The word called a lift. We never will want, no one wants, mass tourism there. That's got its niches in other parts of the island, and it does very, very well there. But the new road,
let's keep it like that.
Yeah, the new road is a game changer.
Yes.
I mean, that has already made a very big difference. Our season seems to be continuing on, and it's supposed to end in April 15th when the high season.
We had a conversation about that the other day. Do you think we should put an end to the seasons and just have people come throughout the year as they do?
Absolutely. I think I heard that's what caught my attention, and I think absolutely. I think the tourist board here have been doing an incredible job over the years. It's in terms of communicating all the different facets that Jamaica has culturally on the island, and that's been really good. So I think if they can keep up the pressure on that, and everyone recognizes that we have to put good money into promotion of Jamaica and people coming here, as well as the diaspora, we've got to make sure that they return, and they don't return for a vacation, they return to stay. Yeah, and I think that's beginning to happen. So there's so many different facets to it. But going back to your question, I was trying to sort of say that there's luxury all over Jamaica because it's so unique to anyone arriving here culturally and food-wise and music-wise and so forth. But what I found in Portland, the experience of going to Moortown and going to Nanny Falls, we've got 9 beaches in the space of 10 or 15 miles that have all got really different energies and vibes. You don't get that anywhere else. I mean, I always try to use this Port Antonio Renaissance. I sometimes have used St. Bart's as an idea, but I only use that because it's a difficult to get to place that used to have explorers and wealthy. Now it's just wealthy. Yeah, and it's got very, very tacky. But what Port Antonio will be is a place for explorers and wealthy in the Western Caribbean that's a lot closer to America and to communication. And that's my goal. And if I can achieve the catalyst of that in this lifetime, then I'll be happy.
I think you've done an amazing job thus far. I mean, there's always room for improvement.
And look at the people that have come and joined we've got Andrew, who's the Red Rooster guy.
Exactly.
And you've got
You're attracting.
Diplo.
You are.
I always say it's
attracting.
the Geejam portal because there's there's different types of people. So maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 people, Steve, who is more of the front person at the hotel, he fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. You get addicted to it. So you leave and you all can think, I want to go back. I want to go back. Oh, I want to buy a piece of land. I want to buy whatever it is. And we see them with our guests. They come and they say, oh, can we go and look at some properties? Oh, can we go and...
Well,
and
that's what we want. That's what we want to hear. You know, we could really talk about that for the whole day.
For hours.
But literally for hours, because, you know, whenever we catch up, and it's always a long catch up. Port Antonio, Portland, the entire parish, and I remember when you were our Food Awards judge and all of those hidden spots that you unearthed for us, that was just like so brilliant.
There's luxury.
That is luxury, certainly. So luxury, the conversation about rock luxury continues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Novia.